Hi guys and welcome to today's devcast. It is been a long-awaited devcast because today Instance Painter is going public. So far it was just a private beta, so we used it internally in Pixel Federation, and also a couple of other companies that contacted me uh, got access. So now I'm releasing this public, and I am looking forward to all the feedback that we get, so we can make it better, and especially all the other point of views on this tool and how you use it. Before trying to make it public, I decided to rework the UI. It is actually the version 0.6 now. If you remember correctly from my previous devcast, in the version 0.5, I did a lot of optimizations, clustering, and so on. So this version was focused on changing the UI and especially making it more readable and having a lot of UX issues solved, because there are a lot, and I mean a lot of edge cases that can happen. For example, painting and null instances, painting definition without the mesh, painting a definition without the material, and so on. There are a lot of like settings that you can set that are not valid for actual rendering. So now the UI is trying to funnel you into a correct approach, how to set up the stuff, and also it will tell you, it will warn you if you, for example, have a cluster with invalid material, or if you have a fallback enabled but you don't have a fallback material set, and so on. So in this video I will also go over the usage. I will not go over the changes, because I want to focus on the people that come to the painter as a fresh start. They didn't never use the previous versions, so I will just go briefly over how to use the instance painter if you want to use it. So to install the painter, you can now go to public package repository on packagebinaryego.com. It's on the GitHub. I will post it under this video in YouTube, so you can go to the GitHub and either just download the repo or basically install it from the package manager from Unity. Once you have it installed, there are actually two things that you will work with. One is the this window. It's accessible from Instance Painter settings, so it will take you to the window. So this is the Instance Painter editor, and it's basically a setting window for the Instance Painter. And then once you have something painted, I already have a few things. You will work with this component, which is the Instance Renderer component. As you can see, I'm using a free package from Synthi Studios. It's a prototype package, just to show off this demo. So shout out to Synthis, they are really great, and I bought a lot of lot of assets from them. So once you start it up, you will not have any active paint definitions. So I already have a few, but just to go over creating a definition, you can either go in the asset and create Instance Painter create paint definition, or even in Instance Painter in tools create paint definition. It will create a definition scriptable object for you, where you can specify the prefab that you want to paint, the material that will be used. Keep in mind that this material is a material that supports the instance painting, so it needs to be a material that supports the how Instance Painter works and how it does the rendering. Uh, I will go over this in more advanced tutorials if you want to create your own Instance Painter materials. But for now, there are different materials that you can use. And then there is the slope and all this. I went over this in the video. Just a quick maximum slope is that the slope the painter will paint these assets. So if you just want to paint on basically a flat floor, you need to have a slope. You will have a slope 0. Flat floor is slope 0, and basically the more the steep it gets, the higher the slope is. So 90 is any slope basically, because it can be steep up. This is the minimum distance between the instances of this paint definition. So if you paint trees, it will not create trees below this instance. There is a scale variation, there is a rotation variation. This is a weight attribute, which specifies if you enable multiple active definitions, the weight attribute will tell how much this basically definition should have weight in painting. So if you have a weight of 0.8 and weight of 0.2, 80% of the painting will be that definition, and 20% of the painting will be the other definition. Uh, and there are some offsets attributes. So for example, if you want to offset how I am offsetting this barrel, because otherwise it would be in half inside the floor. I'm offsetting it by 0.35, so it's over the floor, it's not inside the floor. So you can specify these offsets. Once you have this definition, you can access all these parameters inside the instance painter window. So if I change this, it will also change the tree paint. It will also change this attribute. So we don't really need to use this, but if you want to, you can access the parameters directly. I will probably change this inspector. So this is the default Unity inspector. This is a custom one, so I will change probably this in the future as well. If there are any like things missing, let me know. I will also go over these and made it more streamlined. But currently, uh, this is how we work with it, and it's okay. But I'm looking out for any feedback. You can also select the asset. So this will, if you go anywhere, so this will select which asset it actually is, and you can also change this definition to a different asset if you want to. There is not a default like object field, because you cannot have a null definition, which is valid for the selection. But if you change this to none or null, it will basically remove the asset from the list. So now let's go over the painting. So I'm going to paint the tree paint. There's this menu here. It changed from previous version, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that there is this tooltips that you can now disable if you want to. So if you are using the painter a lot, you already know what all this means and all the shortcuts mean. You can disable them. But by default they are enabled, so it will show you what kind of tool you are using, and all the shortcuts you can use with this tool. So for example, if you want to like paint color on the instances, it's shift button. So now I'm painting the barrels or the instances green, because the instance painter supports per instance coloring as well. I can now paint some more trees. I can change the density if I want to like paint 10 trees inside a single paint. I'm painting them using a green color, so let's repaint them to their default, all the instances to their default color. This is their default color. It's not that it's not white, it's the default color for for the tree actually. So it's inside the geometry. That's what scenes have inside the vertex color attribute. You can also use the control and hold left button. Let me go. Let's paint just two. What it does, it will let you place and scale the single stroke basically. And with control and wheel you can change the brush size as well. You always have settings in of the current tool selected in the Instance Painter window. So if I change it, you see that this is the rect tool, this is the modify tool, and so on. Compared to previous version, just for an info, all these tools now have their own settings. So before, for example, brush size were applicable for every tool. Now brush size for painting is a different setting than erase tool, so they have their own settings. So that's painting. You can also erase instances, pretty self-explanatory. You can also modify instances. So if you just use without any button, you can move the instances as you want to. Control will in place, similar to the placing of the single stroke, will modify the instance. Shift will change the cluster. If you want to know about this, check out the previous video on 0.5 version where this was introduced. It's basically used for we use it inside our games when we have different parts of the region that's getting shown as you progress in the game. So not all the trees, even though they are the same mesh, are shown at once. So we have a different clusters of the trees that are shown as you progress. So you don't really want to paint all the trees, even though they are the same in a single cluster. You can use this for also for culling and so on. And finally, the rect. Let me show you. Let's change it to higher density. Or there is an issue obviously because I'm changing a different settings. I will fix that. So let me pause. So it's fixed. Now change it to 20, and rect tool what it does is paint inside a specified rectangle. Also with shift you can erase inside the specified rectangle. So that's a quick introduction. You can also enable active definitions, which are going to paint. You can also delete active definitions. You want to, it will, these are the UX changes I was talking about. It will let you know that you want to delete something, so and so on inside the renderer. Let's check the renderer. Now you can see inside the renderer that what kind of clusters you have in your scene and how many instances are there and what type of cluster, because these, as you can see, there is a instance type of clusters. You can save them to asset if you want to have the clusters as, for example, addressables and so on. You can save this cluster of instances into an asset, but by default it's an instance cluster. And you see the mesh, the material, and also the fallback material. So since I have uh, fallback enabled, it will tell me, there is a warning that I don't have fallback material set. What fallback is basically not every device. We are working on mobile devices supports compute buffers or SSBOs. So there are two types of instancing that Instance Painter uses. One is for the high-end devices, and the second one is for those that just support the draw mesh instances. So basically the more performant one, the indirect one, is the primary version of instancing, and then there is the more, let's say, limited one. That's as a second option if you have a fallback material specified and you enable it. You can even force fallback, so everything will be rendered in using fallback. This is mainly for testing the material. We use it, but if for some reason we want to force fallback, one scenario is, for example, if some of the Chinese mobile phones or the more like unique mobiles that they will tell you inside runtime that they support instancing even though they don't support instancing, so you don't see anything you can force fallback and so on. So you can also minimize and stuff, make it more readable. And then there are modifiers. Again, you can watch previous videos. I will do more videos on modifiers. By default, you don't really need to enable them if you don't want to. It's for modifying instances at runtime. So you can also enable the clusters. This UI will probably change to very similar UI as I have here, but for now it's like this. So you can disable the clusters. If you disable a cluster, you will no longer affected by editing. So for example, if you want to erase something or modify something that's in the scene, but you just want to modify a specific cluster, you can disable the other clusters and and so on. This button is just for a quick access to the settings. So that's a quick introduction to Instance Painter. And again, as said, this is the day that it's going public. You can install it in your project, play with it. Let me know what kind of features you want to. I will now focus, as I said, in this iteration of 0.6 version cycle. I will focus on the UI. There are still some more UI changes that need some love. And then in the next iteration, I will work on the shader documentation and shader tutorials if you want to implement your own shaders and not use the default shaders or default materials that are provided with the package. So thank you for watching and let me know.